Go on, Terry.
I'd like to call to order this June 8th meeting of the Finance Committee of the Parish of Ascension. I'd like to ask everyone to take their seats, please. Thank you. We have a very tight agenda tonight, so in order to get everything done and be timely, I'd like to ask everyone to take their seats, please, and be silent.
Can we get that gavel one more time?
I can. Thank you so much. At this time, we will have the invocation and the pledge led by Reverend Ken Dawson. And I would like to ask Ken for us to remember Tina Johnson's uncle and family, please.
Let us pray. Father, as we gather tonight, we thank you for all the blessings you bestowed upon us, all the gifts that you've given us. We also thank you for the opportunity, oh God, to lead and represent the people of Ascension Parish. We do not take the responsibility lightly. We ask for your wisdom. And Father, we ask that you just look upon the Johnson family, upon Benny and Tina at the loss of their uncle. We know that you're the one that can soothe and comfort anyone through any type of distress or pain, and we ask for those blessings upon them. And as we move forward tonight, we thank you for Ascension Parish and the blessings you bestowed upon us and the honor that you've given us to serve the people of this parish. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, only Councilman Johnson is absent tonight. Everyone else is here. There are no chair additions. I would like to mention that there is a public comment period, and if you would like to speak on any item on the agenda, please come forward, fill out a card, and that will be passed to me, and at the appropriate time, you will have 3 minutes to speak on that item. Tonight is a big night in our parish. It's an opportunity for us to hear from our auditors, for us to know the financial condition of this parish, and be able to ask questions of those who have done the work. So I would at this time ask that the 2014 audit be presented by Mr. Tommy Lejeune, and I'm sure Jake will be helping himself.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here, Tommy. Thank you for all your hard work.
You guys have two packets in front of you. One is the 2014 audit, the 300-plus pages document that's in front of you. In addition to that, we've got a summary of just some of the trends for the last 5 years and then some of the audit results that I'll go over with you. You'll see that inside cover of the big book, and you'll see that with some graphs in terms of just what's happened this past year compared to the previous 4 years. Before we get into the graphical presentation, just one quick comment. The 2014 binder, this will be the 8th year that you will submit for a certificate of achievement and excellence in financial reporting with the Government Finance Officers Association. Your first submission was back in 2007, and basically it expands what a normal report would look like for a government to include just much more financial information that's just basically required. So it's a sort of a step beyond what most governments do. So in that achievement, you get that award, which you've done now, which this will be, I guess, your 8th year.
Well, thank you. We're pleased to hear that.
Basically, if you start at page 2 of that stapled document, I want to start here just simply looking at the resources available, to run parish government, and basically comparing 2014 to 2013 back to 2010, and just you can see just the big observation. You finished the year right at about $98 million in resources available to run the parish. You look at that, you're a $100 million organization. I mean, that is just tremendous where you were 5 years ago. I mean, that's sort of big business. But with that, you look at where it's come from 2010 of about $70 million a year in revenue to where you're right at the $100 million mark. So tremendous growth in a short period of time. And as you look at the composition of resources, half of that money is made up of sales tax, right at about $54 million. You can see that that's gone up considerably over the same 5-year trend, and the same thing with property taxes, which is the green part of that graph, which is at about $29 million in total property tax collections. But collectively, those two make up the lion's share of what you use to basically fund government. The other categories you can see are basically unchanged. You got the yellow part, which is just outside governmental grants, federal and state money that comes in. You've got a couple of spots in 2010 and 2012 where those get a little bit higher than normal, but we had some weather events that resulted in some FEMA dollars. So the other years are more normalized, where we've not had that type of weather. But really, those resources are not really growing at the same rate that you see property taxes and sales tax. So tremendous amount of resources and a lot of growth in 5 years. Going on to page 3 and just simply looking at your sales tax collections, this breaks it down for you in what's your unrestricted sales tax and your 2 dedicated sales taxes. And obviously it's the same growth. Different districts, so there's different amounts of money that fall into each bucket. But overall, good growth, similar in all different categories. Your unrestricted tax is right at about $26.5 million in available funding, which is phenomenal. Gives you a lot of discretion and flexibility in terms of how you operate your budget. The next 2 are dedicated for just some sort of purpose that was set forth by the voters. The green being drainage, right at about $15 million, and then you've got another category that makes up a number of different restrictions, fire protection, recreation, and that's about $13 million. So you're right at about $54 million in total sales tax collections for 2014. Going on to page 4, looking at the spending side of the ledger, keep in mind you had right at $100 million in resources. You can see for 2014, you had right at about $72 million in total spending. Sort of a number of takeaways as I look at the composition or just the activity over the last 5 years. Number one, you can see your capital outlay spending is pretty heavy in all years. Obviously, capital outlay spending can be a bit erratic in the sense that you can have bigger years and all that. It depends on the timing of when a major project is undertaken. But you've got a lot of spending in every year. As I look at those 5 years, you had $95 million in spending over that 5-year period of time, which is a lot of resources. Okay, and keep these figures in mind as we get a little later into the presentation. So that's tremendous. The second thing is you look at operational spending, the blue part. Although there's some movement from year to year, it pretty much is averaging out to a pretty steady amount of spending. So basically, your operational spending is not growing, nowhere near what you're seeing from a resource growth standpoint, but you're staying pretty steady relative to the day-to-day operations of the parish, that you're not growing just daily operating expenses. So as I sort of draw a line, you're pretty much kind of staying at a pretty good average, 55, 56 million a year, a little above that this year, but basically you're not seeing the same pattern of operational spending following the collection of sales tax. That's where a lot of governments get themselves in trouble as resources grow. And let's face it, sales tax can be an up and down roller coaster. You've been fortunate that yours has been in an upward trend. You're not spending up to your collections, that you're staying at a pretty steady, flat rate of spending from an operational standpoint. So that's positive. But as I look at it, it's significant in terms of where you spent your money, a lot of money going towards capital projects, and then just sort of trying to maintain some discipline in terms of just day-to-day spending. Okay, page 5, looking at basic cash and investment position, just what is your available resources that's unspent, and you can see cash position has really grown over the course of time. So if you think about it, if the resources coming in, the revenue coming into the parish is growing, and we're keeping our expenditures at a pretty consistent level, well, if revenue's up and expenses are flat, we ought to see some growth in terms of net worth and cash position, and this is what you see. For the year ending 2014, you finished at about $165 million in cash position compared to about $144 million last year. So large increase. You know, basically what's happened is the increase in taxes you were able to bank, that you would be able to, rather than spending it on operations or growing costs, you were able to hold that to spend at another time. So that's really attractive from a financial perspective. And as you can see, where your growth in 2014 compared to 2013 was really all in the operational area in terms of cash position. That the blue part, you got really four main categories of cash position. Discretionary, where you've got flexibility to do with it what you want from a lawful budgetary standpoint. And then you've got other categories that there's some legal restriction that you have to spend it in a certain manner. But you can see that your discretionary part, the one that gives you the most financial flexibility, grew quite a bit in 2014 in terms of the blue part. And it's really grown over the course of the last 5 years. So giving you much more financial flexibility. And then the other area is just your restricted operating, where you've got a restricted dedicated tax that as that tax has grown, you were able to save some money into different areas such as drainage, fire protection, those types of areas. That's what that means. But overall, fantastic cash position. Going on to page 6 and looking at the money, the amounts that you owe to other people, banks, vendors, you can see you were right just shy overall with bank debt, right at about, you can see about $97 million. And the thing that I take from this graph is that over the course of time, with the collection of resources, the capital outlay spending you've made, you've also been able to continuously bring down your bank debt. So over the course of the last several years, you've been able to spend down, just in the normal course of paying your debt service, you've really just shrunk the amount of debt that you owe to the bank. So at this point in time, you're right at about $82 million in total debt, and that's down about $3 million, which is basically the normal payout. So, with resources up, spending staying pretty consistent, with the exception of where you dedicate money for capital projects and the pay down of debt, you've still been able to grow cash position, as you saw on that previous page. In terms of the accounts payable and other liabilities, the normal operating obligations, really nothing abnormal there. Basically, it's just very consistent in terms of, it's just how you operate. You pay your vendors timely, and as a result, you don't really grow that debt. It just kind of stays at a pretty consistent balance, and you can see that over the last 4 years. Looking at page 7, and this is sort of what I was alluding to, that over the course of time, as revenues have grown, that we've been able to pretty much grow the parish's net worth, where this year you've got fund balance right at about $176 million. So you can see the different composition. I'm going to go into it a little bit more in a moment, but it's had a really good growth year in 2014. And just really to move on to page 8, you can see it from a numerical standpoint. Your discretionary fund balance, which is made up of your general fund and your sales tax number 1 fund, which what I would call your rainy day parish's savings account. So in the event there was some emergency or some opportunity where you needed to go and find unrestricted discretionary money, this is where you would find it. And you can see at 2014, you finished the year right at about $26.5 million, which is a very, very good amount of flexibility. I can remember at one time when that number was $3 million, going back 20 years. So it's really grown to a point where you've got the flexibility in the event of a major hurricane and you had to pre-fund costs that would be subsequently reimbursed by FEMA. You've got money in the bank that you can cover those activities so that you can get out and take care of those obligations before waiting to get paid from the federal government. Coming down and looking at restricted operating funds, you can see you pretty much had growth in all areas, right at about $96 million in operational fund balance, and it's really made up of drainage, fire protection, and really recreation and health and mental health activities, but good fund balance there. And then the last thing you can see, your capital outlay funds, right at about $53 million available, largely in drainage and roads. unfortunately, although that sounds like a lot of money, the cost of infrastructure, that business is just very expensive. Certainly what your needs, the parish's needs far outweigh what you have in the bank, unfortunately. But overall, very good fund balance to end the year. And finally, on page 9, a few reportable items that we had relative to, beyond just auditing the numbers and assessing your financial situation. We do look at internal accounting practices, compliance with certain laws and provisions of contract agreements, those types of things. We did have 3 reportable items. 2 are carryovers from last year. The first 2 are sort of technical compliance matters. The first dealing with your criminal court fund. If you recall from last year, we reported that the collecting agent that handles the money for this judicial activity made an error in how they funded out or passed along funds. And as a result, that error created a deficit in this fund. And so what happens is the state budget law requires that all your funds be maintained on a positive basis. This fund is basically in technical violation of the State Budget Act. So at this point in time, you do have an intergovernmental agreement set up with the parish court, and you're funding that back to them over the course of time. So that's really all you can do to correct it, is just to eliminate the deficit and fund the dollars that are owed back to the parish court.
Excuse me, Tommy, who was the collecting agency on that, just for the sake of the
It was the
public?
sheriff's office.
So we understand that it was not our accounting department that did not collect the money. It was an error, simple error at the sheriff's office.
Right.
Thank you.
The second area deals with the electronic filing of information with the Department of Housing and Urban Development. They accept no paper from a submission standpoint, so everything that anybody submits to them across the country is done through an electronic system designed for them. There are some reports that have been submitted manually to them that we just simply have to follow their rules and submit the data electronically. So pretty easy fix, but it is a technical violation of your agreement with HUD. And then the last thing was something that was previously reported in the media, and we were alerted to the issue by the Legislative Auditor's Office, where you had the misuse of fuel cards, some fuel purchasing cards. Sort of 2 observations that we had is, one, your system caught it, which is good. Not to say that this is the type of experience you want to see, in terms of your internal operations, but your system of controls caught what was going on, and basically you were able to self-correct it. So that's the first observation. And the second is that you do have restitution in place in both cases, that in terms of restoring the resources back to the parish. It's about $16,000, but at the end of the day, one of those instances has been fully repaid, the others simply on a restitution agreement at this point in time. But overall, we were really satisfied with your accounting department, the processes that they have in place, the effort that they make. We were satisfied. I mean, just had a few instances of 2 of which are just kind of minor technical violations. But we were happy with the systems that you have in place, and then overall, I thought the financial position and the financial performance was just outstanding.
Yes. Tommy, are you prepared now to take questions?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Gentlemen, we'll take questions at this time. Councilman Moore.
Just a comment. I was sure, like many of you have been reading the paper, wondering the last week of the legislative session, everything that's coming to a head. They're scrambling, trying to find ways to fill the $1.6 billion gap. And I just find it ironic, because they've been overspending, frankly. And here we are looking at numbers that show we've gone, from $17 million to a $26 million savings account. So I just want to congratulate this council and the administration, everybody in the finance department as well. I think it proves that we've been very fiscally responsible, very conservative with our spending, and I think it's very good government. I hope at least the citizens share that viewpoint from a financial management perspective.
Other comments, gentlemen? Questions? Councilman Shakespeare.
I mean, I just want to echo that. I mean, it's easy to sit up here and say, okay, we have some money, let's go spend it, and just go out there and spend it, and have the next group that comes in, so to speak, have to live off of that, or die off of that, and so it's very hard to have the discipline to be financially responsible when you're dealing with monies like this with so many needs. Believe you me, I would sure like to spend more money in some areas to make some things better, naturally. But to be fiscally responsible is our number one objective. So I want to also echo the congratulations for administration for leading us down that path, and also thank all the rest of the council members and for having the discipline to do that. As we know in government nowadays, and other parishes and state and federal government, it's not that easy. So appreciate everybody.
Anyone else? Councilman Kluwat.
Yeah, I want to thank y'all too, and thank Gwen and all the group there. I just want to let everybody know that sometimes the operating expenses do grow at times, but it grows based on our mandatory responsibilities within the parish. And for the facilities, for the federal government, sometimes we have mandatory responsibilities toward other divisions of government that we have to keep up, and things like that. So, well, it's not always the biggest portion, and some things are out of our control. And you guys do a good job of keeping us within those guidelines and making sure that that comes up to us. Thank you.
All right, that appears to be all the questions, comments. I'll follow that with thank yous to Ms. Gwen for all her hard work, Tommy for your efforts on our behalf. We appreciate it very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Gwen and all her folks. Thank you so much. The ladies and gentlemen in that department do an excellent job. Okay, let's move along to item number 6, Ascension Economic Development Corporation's quarterly report. Its president, Mr. Mike Eads, is here tonight. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening. I'd like to recognize Ms. Dee Lejeune, who's one of our good board members, along, of course, with Councilman Shake Snyder and Councilman Lohr.
Ms. Dee, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your service to Ascension Economic Development Corporation. Appreciate you very much.
To give you those first couple of pages, summarize your current level of activity, which continues extremely high in the parish. There's not a lot of new projects that are out there looking as far as brand new moving in. Almost all of these are potential expansions, which is a good thing, in my opinion. It's always good to see our existing companies wanting to spend some money in the parish. So continue with a very healthy amount of activity. Go through those projects one by one. That project reflection, we're hoping here in the next few weeks for that company to make a decision on the acquisition of some additional land that will support their expansion. Project Kim Man that happens to be a new one. I don't think we're going to get that. I believe that's either going to Iberville or to St. James. Probably the latter has something quite a bit to do with the ozone issue that we're dealing with. They don't have the same restriction in St. James. Project Emory and Project Flex and Project Wonder, those last three are all existing companies with a substantial expansion plan. That Project Flex in particular, that number, $3.6 billion, just changed last week. It was $3 billion, so they've added another $600 million to it. That decision is probably about a year away from final decision, but they will start filing permits around the first of the year. Moving on down to our business retention and expansion. We continue to make calls on our existing employers on a regular basis. You can see the ones with the asterisk by them are the ones that have told us they have potential expansion plans and adding employees, which is very important to us. On the third page, we now have 8 certified economic development sites on the market in Ascension Parish, and 2 more in the hopper at LED that we expect to get approved in the very near future. And once that's done, we will have more state-certified sites on the market than any other parish. And we're very proud of that fact. We worked very hard to, to get ourselves in a position of having properties ready when these opportunities come along. This Wednesday evening, Planning and Zoning, we'll see the introduction and public hearing of the text and map for the West Bank Industrial Overlay in the McCall-Modest area. Give you a little background on that. There are 17,000 acres, round number, in the project area. The rezoning, in quotes, I use that in quotes, will actually take place, if approved, via the establishment of a new industrial overlay zone in the planning code. This particular part we're calling the West Bank Industrial Overlay. So we're not seeking to rezone per se at present. What that would allow a potential company to do is come in and seek rezoning within the category that is overland on top of what is essentially almost entirely conservation over there at present. So there's actually two things going on. There's the text that has to be created to create the overlay, the industrial overlay, and specifically the West Bank overlay, and then the map amendment. So hopefully that will get through the Planning and Zoning Commission and end up on the council's agenda fairly soon. And we are moving apace. Right now we have memorandum of understanding with 16 property owners, which consists of about 14,775 acres that allow us to perform certain due diligence, have access to their property and perform due diligence on it. We have already started that process. As a matter of fact, we have retained a company named Dewberry Incorporated, which is a very large international planning and engineering company. And they, as we speak, are doing a dock and rail feasibility study on that area. 2 critical pieces of infrastructure that, unless we can, have a high level of confidence we can get the rail service in there and ship and barge docks on the river, there's no sense in going any further with the project. It doesn't make it feasible. So that's where we are with that. Stay tuned. Hopefully, if things go well, it will end on your desk on the council side. The Industrial Development Board has had some good recent collections. They have gotten a $70,000 payment from Impala, and then the IMTT, International Matex Tank Terminals, refinanced their debt. And when that refinancing took place, it was inserted into the document that they will begin paying $25,000 a year in administrative fee, and they had a closing fee of $50,000. So as you may recall, there's a 3-way cooperative endeavor agreement between us and the parish and the IDB that the excess funds will be divided, of the IDB will be divided between AEDC and the parish. In August, we are going to have a small business power week. So we'll be featuring a whole series of lectures and hands-on training sessions for our small and emerging businesses in the parish. Financing, franchising, social media, et cetera, et cetera. You'll be hearing more about that. In fact, we're working with the parish, with Mr. Martinez about doing a proclamation, and you'll see there's going to be a series of events at that, and hopefully we can make this an annual thing with our many partners. We have many partners out there in Becca, SCORE, Junior Achievement, Small Business Development Centers, on and on, that are involved in this thing, in the chambers, of course. So we're looking forward to that, and we'll be back to you about that in a month or so. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mike. I have a couple of questions. First, I want to congratulate you, yeoman's work, obviously, to coordinate 16 landowners, the railroad, and the Port Commission to try to accomplish something for the West Bank that could be historically a game changer for that area of our parish. And so we appreciate everything that you and Ms. Dee and the members of the Ascension Economic Development Board of Directors are doing. And if there's anything more you want to elaborate on with that project, we are happy to hear from you.
Well, I do believe in give credit where credit due, and I have to give credit to Councilman Joseph. He's really worked very, very hard at this, and I really appreciate everything you've done, Oliver. And,
Thank you very much.
We're excited about it. It's a wonderful opportunity.
Outstanding. It's historic. Historic. The other thing I'd like to go back to, because of our prior experience with Shell, I'd like to go back to Project Kimman and ask you if this site is determined to be best suited to St. James Parish, has there been any discussion with the stakeholders in Ascension? Because the tremendous impact that we know will result in Ascension Parish of a $5 billion project in St. James, this could have a very devastating effect on some of our government entities here as we try to provide services and infrastructure for the influx of folks that would typically be involved in that. So if you could elaborate on that, if you have anything to say, please.
Well, I mean, we had been in direct contact with the company at one time because they were looking at sites in Ascension, but since they essentially have cut us off the list, or not formally, but for all intents and purposes, that line of communication is not open. We can certainly open that line through LED and, express our, concerns about, there being an impact, certainly an impact on the schools and traffic.
I would certainly personally like to ask you to do that.
Yeah,
And if this body needs to vote to ask you to do that, then I'm sure that we could do that, or to give you authority to do that, certainly. I don't want you to feel like we're telling you how to do your job, but you know that I was very involved in that pilot with Shell, and as were many other stakeholders, and we don't want to get caught in a situation where we do not have any benefit or any consideration for Ascension Parish and the impact that kind of project will have on us. So,
I'm not even privy to the location under consideration in St. James. I am privy to the one in Iberville, which is pretty close to Ascension Parish, but not the St. James site is unknown to us. But we can make an inquiry.
okay. So you'll be happy to do that, I hope.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it. And I think I had another question. We appreciate very much your effort to supplement your own funds with work with the Industrial Development Board. Thank you so much for that. It's a huge help. We appreciate your report. Now, any other questions among the council? Mr. Joseph.
Yes, Mike, once again, to go back on that West Bank Industrial, just to ensure the council that and the citizen that LED at the state of Louisiana is putting those funds up for the study and the work on those grounds.
Yes, that's a very good point. In the Certified Sites program that I mentioned, the way that program works is the state of Louisiana LED pays 75% of the cost, and we pay 8.3%. BRAC pays 8.3%, and traditionally the property owner will pay 8.3%. We've been able to get a commitment from LED on our West Bank project, even though it's not certification per se, but because it's so potentially impactful of the state, they're willing to use that same funding formula, and so we have a commitment of $1.2 million of state money to help us perform the due diligence on that project, and so that's quite. Been very thankful and grateful for that, for LED's leadership and then BRAC's help, frankly.
And I'd just like to say one more thing, Mike. I really appreciate your department because, once again, this is one of the largest projects in South Louisiana, and we are doing everything the right way this time, instead of just asking for a certification. We want to know what the job's going to create, how it's going to impact the environment, how it's going to impact the city of Downsville, how it's going to impact the neighborhood and the parish, economically wise. So this project is very important to the parish, and I have to give my hats off to Mike again that we're doing it the right way. Slow process, but we're doing it the right way. And thanks again, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Kluot.
Yeah, Mike, I want to go back to your business retention and expansion.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for calling on these folks, and just let everybody know that I'm just looking at the list, and it's either 6 or 7 of these large businesses that serve industry and serve the community or home-owned businesses.
That's right.
By folks that were born and raised in Ascension Parish and went on to develop and work hard through several generations to build business. And we appreciate their efforts for hanging around and getting the job done.
Well,
And,
we try to make sure that we call on not just the big ones, but as many of, all sizes as we can, because I think exactly what you said is very important. The people who start their business here and tend to stay and keep investing in the community, and it's very gratifying.
Well, I'm gonna just tell you that I work for a company that their home office is out of state. They're nationwide and some out of the country, but their home office is way away from here. And they bought the plant that I'm at, and they just cannot always fathom that when we need something, there's somebody on Highway 30 or somewhere in our region that has the equipment, the parts, whatever, the materials that we need. And just everything about this industrial corridor, how it's made up, and it looks like it was planned. It evolved, but they just can't understand that we have the stuff that's readily available in some other parts of the country where people are trying to promote industry, that have a good chance to work with government and promote the industry to come in, but they don't have the resources
Right.
to actually facilitate that industry. And not to count the fact that we have one of the best workforces in the country right here in South Louisiana. We
You're correct,
continue
sir.
to maintain that. Thank you, sir.
All right, moving on to item number 7, if no one has any further questions of Mike. I think we get another opportunity to hear from you, Mike, as you will give the update from the Ascension Parish Film Commission on agenda item number 7.
Yes, I'm standing in for Tracy Browning, who couldn't be here this evening, to give you a little bit of update on activities of the commission since you created it, not too long ago. We've had one organizational session in which Tracy was elected chairman, and I was elected vice chair, and then we've had one follow-up session from since then. We actually met with the Baton Rouge Film Commission people, and they were very, very forthcoming and helpful to us. They have, I think, an enlightened self-interest to see, more film being done in the area, not just in East Baton Rouge, and they are extremely helpful. But anyway, with that, we need some revenue to start up the organization. And as you see there, what I've outlined is things that need to be done. Some just mechanical things like logos and website, that type of thing. That fourth item, Real Scout, is a proprietary web-based package that is used by the majority of the film industry to go in and scout locations. The nice thing about this is once you get it up and running, it becomes somewhat self-populating, because the crew members who want to work in this area, who live here or want to work in this area, can go in and put their names and credentials into the system, and also the vendors, whether it's prop supplies or whatever it may be, can go in and register themselves on here. It really keeps us from having to keep up with them that way. And so this Real Scout thing, a location scout can go in there and everything's there for them to look at, to make a decision whether they actually want to come and look at it on the ground.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion by
Second.
Councilman Lambert, a second by Councilman Kluot. Do I hear any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Agenda item number 8, amendment number 1 to the master contract for professional services with Gulf South Engineering and Testing Incorporated Geotechnical Services, increase of contract by an additional $184,000 for a total of $284,000, and to extend the term to December 31st, 2015. Mr. Bob Horner, welcome.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair
Thank
and
you.
Committee members. This is to continue with our funding for projects that have come on board to take advantage of the on-call services that we have for professional testing, materials testing, and a lot of the projects that we're doing with buildings, roads, and fire stations throughout the parish.
Thank you. Questions, gentlemen? I'm awaiting a motion to approve.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
A motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert.
Second.
Second by Councilman Chris Lohr. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you, Bob. You will continue to be with us for item number 9, amendment number 1 to master contract for professional services, the Beta Group Engineering and Construction Services, Geotechnical Services, to increase the contract by an additional $20,000 for a total of $120,000, and to extend the term to December 31st, 2015.
And this need has specifically come up to continue and finalize the testing on the government complex that's ongoing presently.
Bob, I want you to clarify that these items are already in the budget.
Yes, ma'am.
These are not, these are not
There's
new
no
expenditures. These are items that are in the budget.
Second.
All right, have a motion by Councilman Kluot, a second by Councilman Melanson. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Bob. We appreciate all your hard work, particularly with that road transportation work coming up. Thank you. All right, item number 10, amendment number 3 to a master contract for professional services with Meyer Engineering to increase the contract by an additional $16,094 for a total of $38,514. Welcome, Ms. Martha. Good to see you
Thank you,
this
Madam
evening.
Chairman, members of the council.
Thank you.
This was due to the increase of the budget. We started out with $260,000, and it was increased to $461,000. So therefore, the contract needed to be increased
So moved.
16th.
Have a motion by Councilman Kluot, a second by Councilman Shake Snyder. Any questions? I'll make one observation, that because we have more revenue, we can increase spending in certain areas, and certainly this is one of the areas where we're going to do that. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, I'll get to that one. Okay, item number 11, a request by the City of Donaldsonville for $1,700 contribution to the Juneteenth celebration. It's being presented on the agenda by Councilman Joseph, and we have a young lady who's here to speak on that issue.
Hi.
You are?
Tamikio Garrison.
Ms. Garrison,
Yes.
welcome to the Finance Committee meeting. We're happy to have
Thank
you
you.
with us tonight.
Thank you. Again, Tamikio Francis Garrison. I'm a resident of Donaldsonville. I am the volunteer chairperson of the City of Donaldsonville's Juneteenth celebration and have been so for the last 4 years. I'm here requesting assistance from the parish with the rental of a stage for the Juneteenth celebration. This is our 19th year and with this celebration in Donaldsonville. It was actually started by my mom and my dad, Janet Francis and Bernard Francis, the former mayor of Donaldsonville, several years ago.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert, a second by Councilman Chris Lohr. Any questions?
I got a question.
Councilman Kluot.
This is requested by the city of Donaldsonville?
It is. The event
You
is.
represent the city of Donaldsonville?
I am for this particular event. I submitted a letter
Yes.
to the chairperson from the mayor stating that I'm the coordinator.
Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Kluot, if you'll pass this letter around,
Oh,
please,
that's
so
all
that
right. I'll
everybody
take a
can
word
see it.
for it.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So we had a motion and a second. Do we have any objections? Any
No,
comments?
no objection. I wouldn't
You
do
don't want to
that.
object, Mr. Joseph?
No, I
Mr.
just-
Joseph, do you have a comment you'd like to make?
Yes, and once again, I want to congratulate Ms. Tamikio on this HIP project, because for a long time, her mom and her dad took over the project for many years, then the African American Museum took it over, and then due to what you call
Funding
Mr. Tamikio took it over, and then the city took it over. So we are keeping it alive on the West Bank, the tradition of Juneteenth, and once again, I appreciate the council for all their support on Juneteenth.
You're welcome. Any objections? Hearing none? No, Mr. Cluott.
I appreciate you taking it over.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you. All right, no objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you. I do
Thank
have
you.
flyers for you guys.
Oh, please, make sure we get those.
That this weekend coming up.
Yeah,
Yes,
come eat.
it's
Very
Saturday
good.
and Sunday.
Moving along to item number 12, Ms. Sandra Pereira, will you give us the monthly contract report, please?
Good evening. Before you, you have the monthly contract report for the new and renewal contracts for the month of May.
Gentlemen, if you'll review these, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Do I have any questions? Thank you, Ms. Sandra. We'll move along. Finance reports, item number 13, the budget amendment number 4, approval to introduce ordinance to amend the 2015 budget. Ms. Dawn Caballero?
Good evening. You have before you an ordinance for budget amendment number 4, which reads as follows. An ordinance to amend the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2015 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension, adopted by the Ascension Parish Council on the 20th day of November 2014. Section 1. The Ascension Parish Council hereby ordains that the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2015 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension is hereby amended, approved, and appropriated as follows. The operating budget, East Ascension Drainage Fund, expenditures and other financing uses. Transfer out to the East Ascension Drainage Construction Fund for the levee accreditation project, $1,800,000. The capital budget, East Ascension Drainage Construction Fund. Revenues and other financing sources, transfer in from the East Ascension Drainage Fund, $1,800,000. Expenditures and other financing uses, engineering fees for the levee accreditation project, $1,800,000.
Have a motion by Councilman Cluott, second by Councilman Lambert. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Moving on to the sales and tax use report, Ms. Gwen LeBlanc.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You have your sales and use tax report before you. It represents our 3 sales tax districts. All 3 year-to-date sales tax districts are up considerably, and according to the budget, they're also up. And all of this is a result of the economic driver of the situation is still the petrochemical industry. And if you can see on page 2, this is just using the sales tax district number 1, and you can easily see the petrochemical industry is up 27.65%. And the third pie chart is still using just our 1 cent sales tax. Object of this chart is just to give you an idea of what sectors are represented in the sales tax collections. And then the last page is the historical depiction of the sales taxes for showing the last 9 years plus 2015 year-to-date. Yeah, and this is all 3 sales tax districts. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
I don't see any questions, Ms. Gwen. Thank you for that. It was a great
Okay.
report.
You're welcome.
We will move along to our next item, and I have gotten more paper here in front of me than I can find my agenda on. Here it is, here it is. All right, the bid items, number 16, to accept the lowest responsive bid. Ms. Jones Shivers.
revenue and
Excuse me? Excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped 15. When you lose your paper, you're going to skip something. All right, the revenue and expenditure report by Miss Amanda.
Good evening. Before you are the financial reports for the month of April 2015. Page 1, revenues are at 56.72%, and page 2, expenditures are at 70.16% at 33.33% of the year. On page 3 are charts that compare the year-to-date revenue and expenditure for both operating and capital to the budget. Page 4 and 5 gives you a brief explanation of the funds that are highlighted on page 1 and 2 that are under the budget for revenues or over the budget for expenditures by 5% or more. And the last page reflects all checks issued in April over $100,000, and the total of these checks are $1,657,553.74. Once you review the report, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Gentlemen, any questions? All right, we have no questions. We'll move along. Now we'll get to item number 16. Ms. Joan, I was trying to get to you early.
Yeah, I have quite a few.
I know, thank you.
On May 19, 2015, the purchasing department received 3 bids for a marquee sign for Lamar Dixon Expo Center. After review, the purchasing department and Lamar Dixon recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid from Munn Enterprises and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this service.
So move.
Have a motion by Councilman
Second.
Joseph, second by Councilman Kluwat. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On April 29, 2015, the purchasing department received 2 bids for a Caterpillar dozer or equivalent. After review, the Ascension Parish Fleet Department recommends accepting the lowest responsive bid from Crawler Supply and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this equipment.
Motion.
A motion by Councilman Kluwat, a second by Councilman Shakespeare. Any objections?
Got a question.
Okay, I have a question from Councilman Lambert.
Yeah, Mr. Dawson, are we going away from the leasing and going back to purchasing our equipment?
Yes, sir. On these big items like this, the leasing program really, the lease ended when the equipment was still in very good shape.
Okay.
So it's more a financial
Beneficial.
decision to discontinue on some items.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you very much. I have a motion and a second. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On April 29, 2015, the purchasing department received 2 bids for a John Deere tractor or equivalent. After review, the Ascension Parish Fleet Department recommends accepting the lowest responsive bid from Sunshine Equipment and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this equipment.
So move.
I have a motion by Councilman Joseph, a second by Councilman Shakespeare. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes.
On April 29, 2015, the purchasing department received 8 bids for an excavator or equivalent. After review, the Ascension Parish Fleet Department recommends accepting the lowest responsive bid from State Machinery and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this equipment.
Motion.
I have a
Second.
motion by Councilman Kluwat, a second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes.
On May 15, 2015, the purchasing department received 4 bids for the 2015 road package. After review, the Ascension Parish Engineering Department recommends accepting the lowest responsive bid from R.J. Daigle and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this
Motion.
service.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilman Kluwat, a second by Councilman, who had that? By Councilman Melanson, and a yippity-doo-dah from me. So happy to see this being pushed through and done on this evening. Thank you so much. And do we have any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On May 19, 2015, the purchasing department received one bid for rescue tools for Fire District Number 2. After review, the Fire District Number 2 recommends accepting the lowest responsive bid from River Country Rescue and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this equipment.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
I have a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert.
Second.
Need a second from Councilman Dempsey Lambert. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On May 19, 2015, the purchasing department received one bid for approximately 6 powerful fans installed.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We're not gonna make you read that one.
We caught that
I was wondering how I was gonna handle it.
It is a courtesy to you, Ms. Jones. We have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert, a second by Councilman, who was that? Robert, by Councilman Kluot. Any questions?
I don't have a problem.
If anybody
That's
wants
the
to know
brand
what we're
name.
buying, see me after the meeting.
Some
And,
big old fans.
yeah, some big old fans.
They're good.
Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. I would like to mention before we leave that on Thursday, the 11th, at Elegant Affairs, St. Elizabeth Hospital, I'm proud to chair their board, will host a men's luncheon, the first ever in our parish. And I have invited the members of the council to be at my table there, and I'm going to force them to join me. And I look forward to seeing every man in this room in that
Ms. Terry,
luncheon.
you
Yes.
said Elegant Affairs, I believe it's at Park 73.
Park
isn't it?
73.
Really?
Yes.
That's what the thing we got said.
Park 73.
See, that's what I was telling you.
I was going to Elegant Affairs.
Well, well, look, they're probably serving health food at
They'll
Park
probably-
73. We might have some fried chicken at
I
Elegant Affairs.
promise you, it's going to be good, it's going to be good food. So at Park 73 at 11:30 on Thursday, look forward to seeing you all there. And at this time, I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Just
That motion
don't
passed.
forget the next meeting